Alex Details Revolution, Chapter 3, Mystery Man of Pluto. Captain Odessa couldn't tell her crew why they were going to Pluto. She was under direct orders to keep her mouth shut. No discussion, no unauthorized communications. Anyone attempting off-ship communications would be thrown under stasis. No fooling around. Now, some captains wouldn't have any of it. Open lines of communication with your senior officers. Let them help you see things from all angles. Well, Odessa believed good subordinates should shut up and do as they were told. That was, after all, what she was doing. Things were somewhat different now. There was another on the ship who wasn't a subordinate. He was perhaps one of the world's best-known celebrities, and he knew things even she didn't know. And there he sat, in her quarters, across the appetizer tray she'd set out on the coffee table. Alex Detail grimaced at the tray. All this food, everywhere. It's making me sick. You never eat, it's not right. Every year at the ADCOM dinner, we look at you, pick at your food, and push your plate away. Sinful. Ugh, there's nothing worse than watching a person eat. If you start to eat, I'll leave. Odessa shook her head. A person taking ill at the sight of food? How could she understand such a thing? So, Detail asked, why are we going to Pluto? Odessa said, you know I can't discuss it. I could order you, Detail said. Odessa laughed. Oh, that old claptrap again. Go ahead, won't make any difference. We're at war, the rules don't apply. Detail shook his head. You've got your strategic management terms mixed up. Rules always apply no matter the situation. Policies are made to be broken because a policy is a set of parameters for decision-making designed to avoid repeated analysis of recurring situations. Makes no difference. There is a man living on Pluto, Detail said. Well, then he must be very cold, the pitiable soul. Odessa reached for a hunk of cheese. You said you wouldn't eat. Odessa shrugged as she chewed. Okay, if you don't know, I'll ask around the crew. Detail stood as if to leave. Now sit down, Odessa said, not in her captain's voice, but in her idea of a mothering voice. I wish you wouldn't vex me so. You don't know as much as you think you do. I know there's a man on Pluto, a man named Pivchi Daring Kite. Odessa hid her surprise well. There are very few people alive who knew that name. All right, Admiral. This mere captain will tell you what little she knows. I've only recently learned about this. Pivchi Daring Kite was sent to Pluto back in 2036 as an explorer. He found some caverns below the surface, perhaps made by another race. That's the official story told in secret. He was to explore for several months, then return, but shortly after he arrived, he ceased communicating with Earth. It was assumed he had died. But he didn't, Alex said. Odessa shook her head. Apparently not, though we just found this out. Another expedition was never sent to Pluto to retrieve him. Why bother? And the cost at that time, enormous. No politician would vote for it. Not with massive resources being put toward terraforming. There was really no reason to go. So now, what makes O'Ray think he's still alive? He sent Earth a message. It's been checked every which way. It is authentic and recent. Alex whistled. It would seem he found something far more advanced than caves. Odessa nodded. Something that kept him alive. He was born in 1985. He's almost 300. What did his message say? Detail asked. Odessa shrugged. I couldn't say. Well, we know it must have been topical, otherwise they would have assumed Daring Kite recorded the message long ago, and it is just now being sent. It also must have some bearing on the Harvester crisis. Why else send us to Pluto? Odessa nodded. Yes, Ray expects us to find something useful. That's all we know? Alex asked. That's all we know. And if that's not all we know, I hope you'll tell me, especially since you have, quote, no recollection, unquote, of boarding my ship. What does that mean? Alex asked. Odessa cleared her throat. Alex, if anyone could have planted himself on this ship for whatever reason, that person is you. What are you talking about? I hate these ships. I hate leaving my apartment. There's no way in hell I'd ever have agreed to come here. You know that. Everyone knows that. Well, who put you here? You got a very cavalier attitude about being abducted. ADetail shook his head. Maybe I'm getting used to it. Array abducted me when I was 7. I never lived at home again after the Mobius communicator. They've been jerking me all over the place since day 1. Every time they couldn't understand what the hell was going on. Now we're at war. Their methods are more extreme. Whose methods? Fleet Admiral Sivo? Do you think he put you on this ship? Who else? Sivo must want me on Pluto. He knows I would have said no. Look, I'll be honest, nowadays I'm the last person they tell their plans. Like you said, I'm not as smart as I used to be. Alex thought a moment, then said, So, getting back to the point, yes, that's all we know. We need to find out more. Odessa said, Don't even try to communicate with anyone back home. I've locked the comm system. The harvesters have big ears. I also know you could figure out a way, but you wouldn't jeopardize this. So please, just sit tight. We'll be there in a few hours. Oh, no, I know that. There's someone else on board who has big ears. I'm going to see what she knows. ADetail jumped up and left Odessa alone with her hors d'oeuvres. It then occurred to Odessa that ADetail wasn't really that blasé. No, Alex ADetail, a full-fledged admiral, was embarrassed about having been abducted and stuck on this ship. In the history of Array, Alex ADetail was the youngest person by more than 2 decades to gain the title of admiral. That title had been given to him at the age of 14, a full 7 years after ADetail's invention had saved the world. But he had not gained his title via years of hard work and painstaking scientific research and undying dedication to Array, which is what the general public assumed. Alex ADetail was promoted to admiral through the use of extortion. In the beginning, the question of whether or not Earth owed its future to a child's brilliance was of great consequence to Array. They had no intention of letting the public know just how much they had come to rely on a young boy's understanding of concepts that even Array advanced artificial intelligences said were impossibilities. Array brand image experts thought it detrimental to their continued superfunding if the voters and corporations realized that Alex ADetail was single-handedly responsible for keeping the harvesters at bay. The public knew he invented the MCOM, but they didn't know that he was the only one who ever understood how it worked. Initially startled by the demand for his thoughts, anonymity was fine with ADetail, until a few years down the road he realized he was giving Array his knowledge for free when he could be charging them handsomely. The rank of admiral was to be their first installment. Fleet Admiral Sivo had laughed at him and patted him on the back when he first mentioned his wish for the title. Oh, the impatience of youth, he said. Some things never change. More chuckles, and ADetail returned Sivo's smiles and chuckles, and then told him about the design flaw he had discovered in the Mobius communicators. What? Why, yes, ADetail said. There was a possibility of malfunction after a certain amount of time and space, because of the prolonged exposure to, well, something. Was it radiation, perhaps? If so, which kind? Alpha, beta, or gamma? Or was it all those pesky neutrinos? Or perhaps some other radical lepton? Did they have time to find out for themselves, or should he just tell them? The harvesters were always hanging around just outside the solar system. ADetail also asked if he'd mentioned that he had a meeting scheduled with Speaker Madeline Spell. Oh, he was sure they'd have plenty to talk about. ADetail's promotion was announced by Sivo the next day. Newly appointed Admiral ADetail politely and quietly informed Fleet Admiral Sivo that the two-dimensional converter of the Mobius communicators had a tendency to catch TAON neutrinos, and that the problem was easily solved with a specific adjustment to any ship's quantum field generator. And that was that. Array was happy, ADetail was happy. Or so everyone thought. Next came the crime. At age 15, ADetail lost interest in all things technical when he suddenly became aware of his mortality. Not in the normal way most people question their existence, but in an extremely psychologically disturbing manner, such that he developed a severe phobia of the body's aging process. How ADetail's horror with aging first came to be was not known, but it affected every moment of his life. He studied aging, death, kept a copy of the picture of Dorian Gray by his bed, and made Array divert some of their military spending to the neglected quest to stop the body's aging gene. Every day brought a new level of anxiety to ADetail. Cells were 24 hours older. The body's clock logged the time. ADetail eventually found what he was looking for when he hooked up with some geneticists, a group who called themselves the Generationists. These people had apparently perfected a technique that didn't just turn off the clock in the body's aging gene, but actually was able to target a specified age to which the body regressed over the course of a few years. Once the target age was reached, the body resumed aging in the normal manner. The technique proved less effective than its developers claimed, as well as quite dangerous. The Generationists did manage to reverse some cellular degradation and to increase the accuracy of cell reproduction by a few percentage points, but the effects were temporary, and though many people were interested in undergoing their treatment, most serious scientific communities regarded them as quacks. The fact that someone with the stature of Alex ADetail would be involved with a group as shaky as the Generationists was considered scandalous, and the Generationists used ADetail's position and admiration to market themselves. More embarrassment came when it was revealed that Alex ADetail didn't want to shave a few years off his already young life. He requested that the Generationists regress him to the development of a 7-year-old. When I was smartest, he said, when time was still too far away to change me. ADetail's regression never occurred because the Generationists were convicted of murder. It seems that their early experiments had killed a number of test animals and at least 3 human participants. It was also revealed that Alex ADetail knew about their earlier malfeasance, but chose to use his name and position at Array to protect the group and gain continued funding for the Generationist experiments. Youth was worth any price, he'd said. Even the lives of others? Wasn't he the boy who'd saved the world, saved billions of lives? The Generationist experiments landed the group's founders in prison. Alex ADetail was quietly plucked from the controversy and buried inside Array's vast organization. Now 17 years old, Admiral ADetail had made himself relatively scarce since his dealings with the Generationists. Little more than a day ago, Alex had been coding new Array defense programs in his office when he was interrupted by a new officer who told him his presence was urgently requested in Array's stasis center. Upon arrival, ADetail was met by a doctor he didn't know. The doctor shook his hand. Alex ADetail's next memory was of waking from stasis aboard the Cronus. Obviously, someone wanted him on the ship badly enough to kidnap him. Either that or someone wanted him out of the way. Someone who would have known that if asked to attend this mission, ADetail would have said no, even if he had been ordered. And while he told Captain Odessa he suspected Fleet Admiral Stevo, that wasn't entirely true. Stevo and ADetail may have disliked each other, but Stevo had access to all of Alex's defense programs, and it didn't make much sense that Stevo would put him on a ship unless he wanted to get him out of the way. Unless Stevo wanted Alex dead. As he walked the corridors of the Cronus, Alex pondered the motivations of his potential kidnappers. For now, there were to be no questions regarding his abduction lobbed at Array Command. Off-ship communications had been banned by order of the captain. Alex approached the cabin he had been looking for, and the door quickly slid open. Yellow. A blinding blast of dazzling yellow light poured from June Mary's quarters. Alex ADetail squinted into the blazing light while his pupil shrank. Admiral, care to come in? June Mary asked. ADetail put a hand above his eyes. Yes, thank you, Commander. Have any sunglasses I can borrow? June Mary touched the control panel and the light was reduced by half. It was still too bright. Being on that murky bridge put me in a state, June Mary said. No, this is more like home. High noon on Venus is glorious. Clouds everywhere, reflecting sunlight in every way you can imagine. Glorious. Ever been to Venus? ADetail shook his head. Never mind Venus. I haven't been to a lot of places on Earth. June Mary led him to a yellow seat, which in the yellow room, with its yellow walls and yellow light, he doubted he would ever have found on his own. Since we'd never been formally introduced, I'm Alex ADetail. I'm June Mary. What can I do for you? I'd like to talk to you about our mission. June Mary shrugged. I know that. What else is there to talk about around here? His eyes finally adjusting, ADetail had a chance to look around. He was seated in a stuffed chair opposite June Mary's workstation. Her desk was a mess of open windows projected every which way, each full of text. Two appeared to be novels. He could see dialogue. June Mary eyed her desk. Most of those are technical essays. Gotta be ready to answer the captain's questions. ADetail sighed and sank back into his chair. I hate being on this stupid ship. It makes me really nervous. Well, that makes two of us, June Mary said. I went to teach a few history classes for Array, and the next thing they tell me they're short of officers. Now here I am zooming off to Pluto, commander no less. I hadn't been on a military ship in 10 years. God's up to something again. That old boy just doesn't stop. Did you see the look on Horace Whittaker's face when Odessa said we were going to Pluto? June Mary laughed. So what have you learned about Pluto? June Mary smiled mischievously. It's an interesting thing, that Pluto. A bit smaller than the Earth's moon, and used to be considered the 9th planet, but right now Pluto is closer to the sun than Neptune. Yes, ADetail said. Pluto's orbit around the sun is about 250 years, but it passes closer to the sun than Neptune for about 20 years each orbit. Which we are just about near the end of now, June Mary said. And that's good if you want to go take a walk down there, because otherwise the atmosphere is a frozen nitrogen methane fog. It might make getting around a bit tough. So the last time conditions on Pluto were the way they are now was about 270 years ago, ADetail said. 270. June Mary nodded, but that's all in the records. None of that is very interesting. The only thing interesting about Pluto, if you ask me, which you did, is the way the frost migrates across its surface. I'm going to pause on page 47 and finish this chapter at a later time.